All right, cool. Um, this this is kind of like an iceberg demo, in that like what you see is pretty small, but the level of effort to make it work is pretty high. Um, this is what our charts look like today if you enable data labels. Just like, yeah, little toggle here. So this is just like a scatter chart, right? And similarly here, this is what it looks like if you have like a stacked bar chart and you enable totals and data labels. So the totals are always rendered at the tip top. And then you can see you get like all these little label overlaps. Uh, so if I go back here and I add my feature flag in, this is what it looks like with this diff that I basically am done with. So you can see it's using a new algorithm to basically limit the labels and make sure that they don't overlap. One side effect is when there's a lot of density, it just doesn't render anything. But all this stuff works, basically supports like, you know, the functionality we have in our existing label implementation. You can like change font size, stuff like that. And then what's going on here? So you can see here the way it renders in the stack bar chart is now the data labels are centered in the segments, and the totals are not occluded or overlapping with the topmost segment. So like if I just remove this. Um, yeah, so the work to make this happen required basically forking the Viz library that we're using. And then resurrecting some pretty ancient work from some open source contributors that has just been languishing, and like getting going kind of deep under the hood to make it all compatible. And the last bit of the work is just getting our infrastructure pipeline to get happy with building our local version of this library. So yeah, relatively small surface change, but a lot of work under the hood to make it happen.
Nate, this is awesome. One also, I think it's also significant to just call out that like this represents an engagement with the Vega and Vega Lite libraries that's a lot deeper than we have had in the past, and Nate's been working with the authors of those libraries a little bit more, which I think is a really good like we are heavily dependent on those libraries, and so having the ability to collaborate with the authors and get our own changes in is going to be strategically important over time, and uh, this represents, I think, a substantial step in the right direction there too.
Freaking awesome. Um, how close to available is that? Like, are there big contingencies in front of letting that go? Or what's your thinking there?
No, so the the only issue is that I trashed our build pipeline last night, so I had to revert it, and I got to figure out how to like basically we have a fork, and I'm telling our infrastructure to point to the fork and not to the public repository, and for reasons I haven't figured out yet, it doesn't like that. So, but that should be small. It should be done today, and then. Um, The only other issue is it's behind a flag right now, and there's no way to get flags into the scheduler. So the one use case where I would argue this is most important is in the scheduler context when you want to generate a PDF with like legible labels. And that doesn't work right now because it's behind the flag. But I, my testing of it has been pretty stable. So my instinct is just I might do like a reverse flag situation where it's enabled by default, and then if things go haywire, we can disable it, but that would allow it to work in the scheduler.
Um, and is it going to work as you sort of shift screen size as well?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
how is so
Here,
would you mind
I'll
demoing
spin
that
this.
real quick? Yeah.
Yeah.
And like just generally, what is your sort of thought on performance? It looked faster than I was expecting.
Yeah, so it seemed arguably pretty performant. There are three algorithms we can choose from. You can see like sometimes the labels shift around as it's recalculating them. Uh, the one I think we're using is the most performant, but it sacrifices some, edge case possibilities of rendering a couple extra labels that might fit if it did a couple more passes.
Yep.
Um,
I think that's the right trade-off, by the way.
yeah. The one thing that's, I just want to emphasize, like all things in Visland, like you can never make everyone happy, and it's not going to be a panacea. Like I know for a fact that the very first thing people are going to complain about is like, how come I don't have labels down here? And I have, I don't have an escape hatch built yet that basically would let us like fall back to the old pipeline if we want to do that. But that could be one option. The other option could be like there might be a way to under the hood alter the algorithm and try to tell it to force label rendering if customers opt into that. But this is one of the most highly commented Viz tickets. So I think this approach is objectively better than what we have today.
This is
I mean,
so
I literally have a dashboard that I want to put this on right now. So let me know.
yeah, wildly excited. This is insane. This is awesome, dude.
Yeah, thank you. I'll let you know once it's out today.
Nate, for the feature flag, is there any, aside from rendering, which you called out as like it won't work there, is there any other risks to turning on the feature flag? Will it change? I'm assuming it will change all of your existing charts that have labels to use this.
Yeah, correct. It's a drop-in replacement. I did the work to make it adapt to the existing label implementation. Yeah, there would be a visual difference. Like if someone for whatever reason has been conditioned to seeing their chart packed with labels, like all of a sudden it won't be packed.
I think
I
that's
guess the only other risk is
Better.
just to call it out is like this is now well, okay. The library we're using is quite stable, but also has not seen a lot of active development for the last year. That's pretty well known in the industry. Like other companies like Hex who are using it, you can see they're also trying to contribute patches to it, and they're just kind of sitting there on the wayside. But that said, like it's our fork of the library, and so the only other risk I would call out is like there might be unknown gremlins in the fork because I built the fork off like the most recent version that they have in the repository. But in testing and in practice, I haven't seen any issues. Like I haven't seen any charts not render or anything like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's awesome.